Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Alpitour, Italy. Modera José Luis Zoreda, Vicepresidente Ejecutivo de Exceltur.
Oiga, sí. Bueno, buenos días a todos. Por deferencia a los ponentes, el coloquio se va a realizar en inglés. Thank you very much, first of all, for coming and accepting our invitation. It's a real pleasure to have here with us, and I'm sure the audience has noticed that between the 5 persons that are here in the stage, they represent over 23% of all the tourists that come to Spain. The volume of tourism that this gentleman has top responsible of the company average in the region of 14-15 million people only to Spain. So it's a privilege to have with us from all over the world this panel. Without any further introduction, I want to leave the introduction in this particular case to Dr. Michael Frenzel, a good old friend of Spain for many years, which today he's invited in his capacity of chairman of the World Travel and Tourism Council. And I would appreciate, Michael, to set up the scene, if you can give us a little bit your views on how you've seen 2013, prospects for 2014, and overall, how does the reputation of a country increasingly or reducingly influence the tendency of consumers to choose one place or another?
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much that I have the honor, I think, to open and to set the scene. It's a very interesting topic, and we have the forum before, and some of the issues were mentioned, basically. Let me start, and I was asked, I think, to give you, and we heard this morning, some figures already, a small view of 13 and 14. 13 was overall worldwide a very good year for tourism. It was a good year in Europe. It was a good year for Spain. We heard the numbers here. The prediction for 14 is similar, despite the ongoing, basically, not crisis, but uncertain situation, economic situation in Europe. There's more stability in the market, which is quite good. Therefore, we believe 14 will be at least a good year like 13, which is good. And we heard the impressive numbers for Spain, with nearly 50 million visitors, a huge, huge number, basically, here. And we heard the numbers, tourism for Spain, 15% of the GDP of Spain is directly contributed from tourism. It's a big number. Nearly 15% of all employees are directly linked to tourism. So it's one of the important, basically, industries in Spain. The big question, and this is the main topic of this panel, is this sustainable? And to be quite open, we all, if you talk to my colleagues, we strongly believe that the success of Spain is partly linked clearly to the crisis of other destinations. And this is especially Egypt. Greece was coming back this year, basically here, but also Greece. And in my 20 years experience, I made always basically the experience that there is a shift between Eastern and Western Mediterranean areas. If something happening in the Eastern one, I think the flow is coming to Spain. This has something to do with the strong brand, which was built up in the 60s and 70s. Spain is a very secure place, and therefore people, this is a sort of refugee place, basically, if something happening in the world and people are looking for a safe place, making holidays, it's Spain. But my question is this sustainable? And I have some doubts. I don't believe that basically this is a base for a long-lasting and sustainable strategy, because companies and basically countries are coming back. And in a couple of years, perhaps sooner, I think North Africa will be stable again. So the main question is, I think, what should we do, I think, to keep Spain as a strong brand as it was in the past? If you look back, and it's a wonderful logo from, you see, España under the Sol, from Miro, which was built up in the 60s and 70s, and it built a very strong Spain, and tourism started in Spain. But every brand, also a destination brand, has a certain life cycle, has to be renewed and rebuilt. And the question is basically here, and this is the part of this forum here and of this exercise, what should we do and how can we do, and what are the major points of rebuilding and re-strengthening the brand of Spain. First of all, I strongly believe a destination brand, talking about a destination brand, it's part of a so-called nation brand. We talked this in the forum before. What's a nation brand? It's very simple finally. If you go to a country which is secure, where it's clean, I think, and has a good infrastructure, this country attracts much more tourists than a country which is quite the opposite. If you're coming to an airport, and I'm not talking about Spain, having a long queue, have to wait hours for immigration, the airport is dirty, there's no air conditioning in the airport, you're coming to the taxis and the taxi driver is trying to cheat you, there's crime on the streets, it's clear, I think, this is not the surrounding for attracting tourists. And it's very much about perception. It's not only the reality, it's also perception. Every nation has a brand, and this perception is built up over a long period. And it's very hard, I think, to change this perception if the perception is going in the wrong way. Think about Colombia, for example. Colombia is very interesting today, but it still has a public perception of a drug country somehow, which is wrong. And to change this in a way, it's a very hard. Spain has a very good brand built up in the 60s and 70s and 50s. It started with tourism here. But as every brand now, the basic question is how to renew this and how to organize the process, I think, to address the main issues. First of all, I believe brand, and just some ideas, I think, to initiate a discussion. Brand is more than advertising. It's one of the big mistakes in my experience, some of the countries are doing. They think, especially in North Africa, there are some countries, just an image campaign is enough to build up a brand. That's not enough, just the opposite. You have first to think about the content of your brand. And it's all about the product which is behind. And it's not only the product of a tourism product in the wider sense, it's a product of all the environment, of the social environment, of the environment of infrastructure, of security, and we have to work on it. And all discussions about renewing a brand is basically to have a very open, self-criticizing process, to start a process of analyzing, I think, what are the strengths and the weaknesses of a country. And therefore, for Spain, basically, I think it's my expectation, at least, for one of the panels here, that we have an open dialogue, I think, how we see the weaknesses and the strengths. There are a lot of strengths in Spain. We know sun and beach. We know the product. We know security. It's fine. We know basically here connectivity is high, one of the highest, and that's one of the reasons I think the big numbers are coming from Germany and UK, basically here. But it's not enough, because a brand should be always renewed and renovated here, and there are some issues, as we heard before. And therefore, first of all, I think we have to start a dialogue and analyze it, I think, what are the strengths and the weaknesses here. Who is running the process? In my view, it's very clear. A nation and a destination brand is mainly, I think, and should mainly basically managed by the government. And there must be a public-private partnership in a way that the government tries to buy in all stakeholders, everybody who is part of this industry here, NGOs, the big companies, the tour operators, the airlines, the hotel companies here, basically to build up a picture, to analyze, I think, the situation, and to give some recommendations what should be done. It's a complex process. It's a process which is never finished, by the way, because it's ongoing. And finally, the brand is an image of a consumer, and the consumers are changing a lot today. And one of my aspects is, and this was not mentioned this morning here, we have new consumers which are technology-driven, which have a different view of holidays, a different view of a country, and we have to address them and find ways to address them. There are a lot of new points, I think, we should introduce in this discussion.
Thank you, Michael. I'll make you some questions later on after this scene, following a little bit the business cycle, and since it's at the end of the room, let me ask you, what are your expectations, because business drives activity, activity drives consumer. What is the expectations from American Express, and how do you view business travel, if you want in 2013, but since we will be short of time, how do you see business travel around the world in 2014? Which areas of the world you expect more activity? And then getting a little bit down to the MICE business, how is the MICE business, in your perception, going to perform in this 2014?
Absolutely. Really good to be here. Always good to be in Spain. The perspective that we bring as American Express is one where we work with businesses on a global basis, both from a transient travel perspective, so the business travel component of travel, meetings and events, and also payments. So we have a really good insight around travel transactions and also the amount of spend that we see with corporations. And what we're seeing overall is a trend towards optimism and growth. After really 3 years of incremental growth from a very bottom, I would say, we're now seeing trends towards stability from an overall business travel perspective and also from a meetings and events perspective. And overall, on a global perspective, we're seeing anywhere between 0 to 3% growth forecast into 2014. What's really encouraging from our perspective, looking at the corporations and how they're thinking about meetings and events and business travel, is that they are looking at those categories as investments. As they're looking at growing their top line, as they're looking at driving revenue, connecting with their clients, connecting with their prospects, and really re-engaging their employees, they see meetings and events, they see travel as an investment in achieving that objective. So really positive trends. Clearly we've come from a low, so there are significant considerations in terms of how we manage and how we look at meetings and events and travel in a strategic way, but overall a very positive start.
And what about in Europe? You have a global view. I'm sure this will be an imbalanced growth. Some parts of the world will grow faster than the others. What can we expect in Europe, assuming that the Far East may be your fastest growing market? I don't know if it is. But
it's actually not. So for the first time in 2014, we're actually going to see a decline in Asia Pacific. And what we're seeing in Europe actually is really different stories depending on the market. So we're seeing the expected strength that you would expect from Germany and from the UK. In Spain, when we did the forecast, our last forecast was in the September timeframe. And what we saw at the time was actually a slowdown in the range of -1%. However, the most recent data that we're seeing more momentum, and we're seeing that flip to more to the positive, into 0 to the +1. So we're seeing momentum in Spain and positive growth from an economic perspective that's driving travel, meetings, and events.
Okay. Let me jump over to Natalia Vorovieva. She is the Chief Executive Officer of one of the main Russian operators. How did you finish 2013? What did you comply with your expectations in terms of the growth of the Russian market? Which were the winners and losers in 2013 in the Russian market, and what are your expectations for 2014?
Okay, Luis, probably I should show the situation a little bit more in perspective. The last year, 2013, was done by tour operators in 2012. And 2012 was very good for Russian economy. We had close to 4% growth of the economy. The season for tour operators was, I should say, fantastic now. And the plans that we, all the tour operators of Russia, have done for the year 2013 were great. There are no results for the whole year, but official results for the 9 months of 2013, it's 23% growth in PAX. So this is the reality from one side. So if we see from this point of view, the situation is really very good. But unfortunately, the tendencies are not so great. We started, as Russia, as economy in general, we started the year 2013 with a similar growth of 3.5% in the first quarter. But unfortunately, we finished the year with only 1.3% growth. And the expectation for the next years, which all the economists, the president, the government that they give to us, it's more or less these figures, and we cannot expect bigger growth. So what I will say that already the growth of 2013 was partly artificial, so we cannot expect the same results for 2014. That definitely there will be growth on the Russian market, but it will be more logic. It will be, in my opinion, 10%, 10, 12, and even this growth will be partly subsidized by tour operators who will try to keep the volume, even not taking into consideration the reality which we have in the economy now. But still, what I should say that the season was, or the year 2013 was very good for the operation to Spain. Also, the official figures will appear a little bit later, but it's, I think, will be 25% growth or something like this. So really very good. In general, I will say that sun and beach destinations, they were in priority, as always, on the Russian market. If we see globally, Turkey is still the biggest destination from Russia, with more than 3 million tourists, which were also taken advantage from what happened with the market in Egypt, because the growth of 20% which this market showed from Russia, this was shown in the second half of the year, which was related to what was going on in Egypt. So European destinations mostly were showing very, very big increases. I will say that the record was shown by Greece, which increased 70%, but this was, I will say, mostly subsidized by the war between tour operators. This had nothing to do with the reality on the market. From this point of view, the growth of Spain was more stable, and so we can expect good results in the future. Maybe one more thing to add, that thinking about our market, we also should take into consideration the exchange rate between euro and ruble, and which also does not help to us too much, because during the last year the change was close to 13%. So even if the prices remain in euros the same, the client should pay, in this case, 13% more, and he's not getting the salary 13% more. So this is also one thing to take into consideration, speaking about the next year, or this year, sorry.
Let me take you on one comment you made. You said that Spain and Turkey favored from the undesired circumstances of Egypt. What are the Russians favoring when they go abroad? What is basically, in the sun and beach type of experience, what is what they look for and what they find in Spain. And also, I was very happy to hear that Russian tour operators, you were subsidizing your clients. I hope you keep this policy with Spain also, and we increase our quota. But jokes aside, what are the main preferences of Russians when choosing a sun and beach destination?
We are the most of the territory of Russia. On the most of the territory, the climate that we have is not very friendly. So that's why sun and beach are the most wanted things on our market. But then, apart from this, I will say that our clients, they have two main preferences. One is that I consider myself also to be the Russian client, so we like to have some cultural activities during our holidays, because usually the holidays are not short. The holidays are, the average is more than 10 days. So some cultural activities are wanted, then it's important that the country can provide with it. And second thing, Russian people like to make shopping during their holidays. And the idea of people who go for holidays, that they take the money and they save the money during the year, they take it with them on holidays, and they spend it during the holidays. Normally, they don't bring it back. They don't go for holidays to save. So these two things adds sun and beach. And from this point of view, probably the third thing I should say is good cuisine, because also we would like to eat good. So all this Spain has. That's why Spain, in general, can be not only one of the leaders, but in general can be the leader. The one thing that doesn't allow it in the present is visas, which we have it at present time.
Would you say that Turkey surpasses us because visa issuing is much more flexible for Russians?
I will say that yes, during the last, I don't know, maybe 7-8 years, Spanish embassy is the best one from the European countries in this question. And I will say that we are cooperating a lot, and they are helping a lot. And one of the reasons that the market was growing so fast was that it became much easier to get the visa, and also the Spanish embassy was the first one to introduce the multi-visas and long-term visas. So now most of our clients, they are getting or multi-visa for half a year, or multi-visa for 1 year, or even for 2 years, depending on how many trips they have done before. So this is definitely a very important point, and this is, for me, this is one of the reasons why Spanish market, the market from Russia to Spain, is growing faster than the market to Turkey, for example. Because Turkey was around 3 million already the last maybe 7-8 years, and Spain came to 1.5 million, which Senior Prime Minister said this year, and it was completely different figures 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Well, according to the present rankings, Russia has overtaken Italy, which used to be our fourth market, and we have the privilege of having Gabriele with us. What is the situation of the tourism industry in Italy, and what can we expect from Italian consumers? As again, it used to be one of the most promising countries towards Spain, but in the last 2 years, I imagine that due to similar circumstances like we had at home, the market has gone down. What can we expect from Italy, and what are the tendencies of the Italian consumer for 2014?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation today. It's a pleasure to be in Madrid. I would say different reasons and explanations. The first one is that probably the Italian economy has gone through difficulties like the Spanish one. So Italian and Spanish consumers have looked at the holidays in a different with a different perspective, so much that in the 2012, the outbound of Italians buying trips through travel agents or tour operators, let's say the traditional way of buying, we can talk about the web-based in a moment, went down almost 20%, which is an enormous number. And this has been reflected both in summer and in winter. Winter represents for Italian about 30% of the holidays worldwide in terms of spending, and 70% is the summer. So one reason was that the Italians, looking at the relationship between price and quality that Spain was offering, started to look at Spain as almost an expensive country, because we are looking at Spain like from a perspective of a country that every day is a little bit poorer. So we were comparing this, and this has created a problem. So Italians have gone a lot to Tunisia, Egypt, and of course Greece. Greece has suffered, since we are talking all day about the brand image, country image, etc. Greece has certainly suffered after the intervention and after all the financial problems, some kind of brand country issue, even though tourists, I don't think they are suffering from the fact that Greece has been intervened or not, but there is a certain feeling that people look sympathy or lose sympathy or lose interest in countries that are suffering. This has now overcome, so I agree with Natalia, Italians have gone a lot to Greece this year, and to Egypt. Egypt till the famous 16th of August, where the Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs blocked the organized travel to Egypt, which created a big issue, because for Italians, Egypt holiday is a good equilibrium between quality of the sun, quality of the beach. Talking about food, almost all the hotels that we use are run or the chefs are Italian, so they find what they are looking for, and so it's a very good proposition in both in price and in quality. After the 16th of August, of course, all the Italian tour operators and likewise Alpitour, we have been looking for alternatives, and we have reversed, of course, a lot of customers to Spain, Spain is very well known, very appreciated, doesn't need any kind of promotion in Italy, because everybody has spent holidays in Spain at least one or two times in their life. So today, in this mix of situation, fun enough, our top brand, which is called Viagidea, that sells trips, holidays between 5,000 and 15,000 per passenger, has gone up 15%. So it also, this is an issue to be considered, because the big volume has suffered a lot. But it looks, as we say in our company, that the rich people keep on traveling as before, actually 15% more than last year. So for next year, Egypt has now been reopened. So it's been reopened. Of course, the situation is still, you have like Colombia, the background of the image of Egypt has been touched. So Italians are looking at Egypt, they're going. The prices, again, are interesting. There is some price opportunities, but they are going with a certain care. From our point of view, we look this year, and some of the times you don't know why this fashion start on the country, and sometimes countries lose some interest. This year we have a strong demand for Cuba, more than 50%. We think we will have growth on Cuba. Kenya also, we have a very good demand for Kenya, and if Egypt stays there, I think we will recuperate a few points of market share on the total Italian outbound.
So you made a comment now which would be interesting. The controversial tourism image of a country, can it be overcome with substantial price reductions?
Short time to relaunch a destination, I think yes, because there is, unfortunately, after the 2007 economic crisis, there is always a price that motivates a decision. Before, probably we were more picky. Now, price is a factor. I mean, it's always a factor, unfortunately for us.
No, because Michael gave us a warning saying, take it easy. I mean, you're profiting in Spain from, let's say, an undesirable circumstance from some other competitor.
I totally agree.
I heard from Natalia, he sent a lot of clients to Spain. You sent clients from Spain.
But you should have seen that weekend, everybody sent people to Spain to look for rooms. And in the same hotels, there were the Russian buyers, the Italian buyers, the German buyers. We were all fighting for the same rooms. And, and Italians were the ones that could pay the less, so could pay the least. I have rich competitors here.
Just to add there and give a more corporate perspective, I think corporations are less price sensitive when it comes to destinations that there's a perception of safety and security. So price is less of a driver than leisure, let's say, and that's what we've seen. It typically takes about an 18-month cycle before corporations are reevaluating destinations where there were prior concerns.
Peter, last but not least, would you share the former opinions your colleagues have thrown into concerning economic stability in Europe, providing, let's say, higher expectations of tourism growth, and how can the split of that growth, if that's so, will be distributed among the number of alternatives that the consumers have today, and in particular, Spain?
So thank you very much for inviting me. That gives me the opportunity to thank all our suppliers that they were supporting us so much through difficult times, which we had, Thomas Cook, and I can only say we are back and we are better. So now asking your question, there were several opinions, most of them I share. Now come to Spain and the Spanish tourism and somehow that Spain profited from the situation in Egypt and as well Tunisia. This is a danger for Spain because it could lead you to the assumption that you can just raise the prices and then everything is fine. But on the other hand, and this you shouldn't do because what the client doesn't like, and we as well as tour operator, not is this yo-yo in prices, that is all of a sudden the price curve going up too steep. So it has to be really a value proposition and for our clients when they come to Spain. And there is as well then a real chance for Spain, because if you can convince your clients to come to Spain and to come back, and if you give them really a real good product to an affordable price, then you have the chance to really build up loyalty from clients who were before in going into other destinations. So, it most probably is not wondering you if I say we have exactly the same destinations in 2013 as our competitors, which were strong. And this was Turkey, Spain, and Greece. And it seems in 2014 that these are going to be the winners as well. So what Michael said in his opening speech, stability and security is part of a good brand, of a destination brand, but as well the quality and the content of your product, of the hotel product, of the infrastructure. And there we have to be, both sides, we have to be careful that we are really taking that forward and building on the strengths you have in Spain. And I said again, without somehow overshooting in the pricing.
Let me get onto a comment of Michael before. He said that in terms of building brand of a destination, not necessarily goes with advertising campaign of PR, and one has to start with product development. What suggestions would you give as one of the major buyers of Spain, Peter, in terms of improving, if they are to be improved, what suggestions in order to compete in a sustainable manner in the future and not being pressed, like always we have been, by tour operators claiming that price is the name of the game, and if we don't, that we are more expensive than other countries, and therefore trying to get into that JoJo that you say, rather than what suggestions would you give for us towards a near future that Spain should do to reposition, to improve, not to compete with prices that sooner or later Egypt will come back to the market with a strong lowering the prices. I mean, we cannot compete with that. What should we do?
Price is an important factor, no doubt about that, but a second most important factor is the quality. And we see that with the transparency the client have with all the new medias in internet and the feedback the clients give in all kinds of forums and all kinds of rating online forums. If there is a bad rating, then we have an immediate impact, regardless the price, on the demand of that particular hotel. So my advice would be that you really, together with us as a tour operator, you work on the quality and on little things and to improve that. And if you see that your rating in Holiday Check or TripAdvisor is somehow not as it should be, that you work immediately on that, because this is really important. And the second thing what we see is that the demand is more and more going into concepts, into added values. And Michael gave me somehow a really good word. In the new world, technology world, you have to think about new concepts. And you may have heard that we developed a new concept, Sun Connect, where you have Connect bars, where you have iPad, where you have Wi-Fi all over the hotel, where you have scouts which are helping the kids and not only the kids but also the parents to really go online and to network and all that new product development is really as well creating a demand. So if you want to know more about it, I'm happy to share it with you, but then not in this discussion. So what I want to say briefly is you should really think what are the additional values you can bring to different segmentations and different client segments.
Let me just, my temptation is to ask you the 3 most promising lines of product within your company for 2014.
These are exactly the trusted products with our partners, and we have a lot of them, with, to name Iberostar, Melia, and Barcelo, and there are as well trusted smaller hotels where we have our own brands, like Sentido, Smartline, and Sunwing, Sunprime, and these are those lines which are growing the fastest.
What about in some other areas that Spain has an extraordinary offer, which is more culturally oriented type of products? Do you see a tendency of the consumers, even though you very much specialize on the typical vacation, but do you see a growth in other areas of the business industry, not necessarily linked to sun and beach?
Yeah, we like growth in sun and beach because this is our main business. We can talk about culture, that is all fine, and this belongs to a destination. But our primarily focus, where we are really strong, is sun and beach, and give the maximum to the clients in that segment. So we have to stay what we are, and we have to develop that further on. And the culture and the sports and all that stuff belongs somehow and gives a rounded picture of a destination. But the core product is sun and beach.
Isa, going back again into business travel and meetings, we are in Spain already have a substantial share of the meetings and conventions, but we know we want to grow a little bit more. What would be your recommendations from the point of view of meeting organizers that we should take into consideration in order to improve our market quota in the meetings and conventions? We have enormous installations all over Spain, fantastic, some of them rather underutilized. What could we do in order to improve this line of business?
Yes, so I would say there are really 2 key things, and I would focus on what you just talked about. There are real areas of strength that Spain has today. And when we look at our information in terms of where Spain sits as a destination in Europe, Spain is, for American Express, is our primary outbound destination for Europe. And Barcelona just entered the top 5 cities this year as a top 5 city in Europe, and we have demand for Madrid and for Valencia as well. So we see real strength in Europe. We see real strength in South America. Where I think there's opportunity is in North America and in Asia. Specifically in North America, I think there is good brand awareness, but there isn't that brand familiarity that you would need to have corporations really look at Spain as a viable destination. And frankly, in Asia Pacific, the awareness is not where it needs to be. So I'd look at those two regions as real opportunities for Spain. I think the second area I would focus on, and it's something that's clearly evident by everyone here in the room, is that travel is an ecosystem. And in an environment where we have very competitive destinations, the destinations that will win are the destinations that are able to better partner with corporations. And we're seeing a trend towards smaller meetings, less attendees, closer to home, more focus on cost and control. So I think the destinations that can design the right products for those corporations will win and will be more competitive going forward.
Natalia, you gave us some warning also that one cannot expect from the Russian market that it will go infinitely, and there will be some contentions on the growth. What should we do in Spain to favor, again, from the biggest part of that growth from the Russian market? What is that Russians will favor more if we did, in addition to visa facilitation that we know? What else should we do something in particular to attract a little bit or to win more satisfaction from the Russian client?
I will say that if we say apart from visa, probably we can do more in the field of visa. Now there is not discussion, but from Russian side, the president, the prime minister, they are willing to take out the visas. That it is very difficult from the European point of view, I have no doubts. But for example, if Spain will show the goodwill, it does not mean that it will happen in the next year that there will be no visas. It will take a period. But in the heads of Russian tourists, it will reflect that Spain wants to be open, that Spain is waiting for them. So this is a part of the image that Spain can improve. Spain has a very good image. The brand of Spain is good in Russia. But steps like this, showing goodwill, even that all we know that it cannot bring quick results, this will improve the brand. Apart from the general promotion, probably what really can be done, and I agree with Peter, that new generation, especially new generation, which travels more now in Russia, they are different, and they pay much more attention to internet, and they pay attention to different things. They pay a lot of attention to YouTube, for example, and it's very important what they see there. So probably it is possible to pay more attention to it and to add some things which help to the brand of Spain. For example, I've seen one idea that in some places they do online videos, not videos, but so that you can see online translation. So and I could see how people they were involved in checking it. This can be camera in the hotel or in the place where interesting event is going on, and as especially the young generation following all these things itself, they will pay attention that this is going on in Spain and that it's something interesting, and that in the future when they will need to choose the destination to go, this will help.
Okay, so some of you posed the impact of internet on the consumers. I would like to throw one last question to all of you on how do you see I mean, even though we're going to have a panel this afternoon where they will defend themselves that they are growing, I would like to see how a traditional question, internet is impacting or not, facilitating the role of major tour operators, like is your case, and then I'll leave for Michael a last question at the end. And how are we going into a disintermediation, or we're going to a more online, integral, vertical integration of tour operators? Where is the, let's say, the edge on consumers that will go by themselves, and how is that affecting the role of people like you, which are major buyers of Spain? Gabriele?
Italy is the third worst country in buying through internet. We are only better than Bulgaria and Romania up to the point. So before the Italians become really users of the internet purchasing, let's say that we have time to get organized. But certainly 2012 was the first year their purchases of travels by internet overcome the purchase in the traditional way. So it was a shock for the industry, because Italy is a very traditional industry. Certainly if you put train tickets, airplane tickets, and many commodity, the number was very big and was higher than the traditional purchases. Package tours, which are what we sell the most, are only 5% of the travel industry purchased through internet. So all the rest, again, is train and the rest. So will change. It will change. Certainly for the moment, I think internet for us is a very important factor for, as Twitter, Facebook, or creating opinion on the image of the, let's say in our case of our own company, of companies. So customers more and more choose whom to buy from, using the image they are able to build using these social things. And there's a lot of money that goes in this, and it's not easy for companies to direct. I mean, it's a very democratic and very independent way of judging companies, which I think for me is a very good thing, because it forces us to be better and better every day more. So far, I think in Italy we don't have a direction. There are very little, again, packages sold through internet. It will change. So what we are, like others in our business, we are getting organized to sell our product through the system, creating and managing, and let's see if we solve big issues with the traditional travel agent system, which is, of course, opposing the fact that tour operators are getting to the market on their own.
Michael?
There is no doubt that the online world and e-commerce changed our business models. When I started 25 years ago, basically the classical business of a tour operator was based on information which belongs only to the tour operator. He has the only information where the hotels are, where the flights are available. This was his basically biggest assets. Today, I think it changed totally. The markets are totally transparent. The customer has every information he wants. He can get every product, every single product, every flight, every hotel. This is one point. And the second point, the customer has the possibility to interact, Facebook and other social medias. And if your rating is bad, I think the best advertising is not helping you. This has destroyed our old business models, but the tour operators, Thomas Cook, TUI, the other tour operators adapted their models. We are much more, I think, developed in our online world than sometimes it's the public view. If you see basically the online part in Thomas Cook, in our business here, it's very high today. In UK, for example, it's nearly 40-50% in TUI. In Scandinavia, it's nearly 80%. So we adapted our business models. But the basic question is clearly, I think, this is a new world. And coming, for example, back to the brand of Spain, this has to be part of a brand campaign, basically. Spain needs 1 million, 10 million, 100 million followers on Facebook as friends, basically. And the new consumer is a different consumer. He has a different expectation, has a different view of a product. He wants more flexibility. And to develop a brand means develop a new product and adapt the product to the new consumers. This is a big task.
Peter?
Yeah, we have totally to embrace this change, and the internet, this is going to really change our world. And what we have to do is to link the offline and the online channel with each other. What we know is that 97% of our clients, they go in internet to inform themselves about destination, about the hotels, and there is content king. And this is somehow as well something which I really would like you to take home and to help us when you have a hotel to give us the best possible content, because content is driving the conversion and content is driving then our common bookings and our common success. So this is something which is changing our business model, and we are working very hard on that we are at the forefront of this change.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, the panel has to end. I will go for another hour with our distinguished panelists. I think a couple of good messages have raised up from here, and I look forward that if we're able to invite you in a couple of years, all of you have improved your quotas of tourists sent to Spain. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming.